Hey there, my name is Megan of Fantastic Fertility, and today we're talking about the pros and cons of using Tempdrop. So I made a little list here because I just wanted to keep this video super low tech, very quick film and upload style, and we're going to talk about these pros and cons and we're going to really break them down. Tempdrop, if you're not familiar, is basically a wearable device that you put on your arm. It's in a little armband that you wear overnight, and there's a little sensor on there, and it basically takes temperature points throughout the whole night. It helps to filter out disturbances as well, and ultimately you end up with an accurate temperature in the morning when you go to sync your Tempdrop device with your app. I like to use Read Your Body. But the point of Tempdrop is it's really marketed and catering to people who have these types of things that we'll get into. So it's really a great match for people who breastfeed and they're up overnight. I'm going to bring this closer. People who mouth breathe overnight when they're asleep. Now, I made two other points here. Before using Tempdrop, I would actually consider first doing mouth taping instead to help with mouth breathing. If the idea of mouth taping is horrifying to you because you're like, I won't be able to breathe then spoiler alert, you may need to work with like a sleep specialist or someone who can help you to address that, because you should be able to breathe nasally and not through your mouth overnight when you're asleep. So definitely get that checked out as a side note. But mouth taping can be a really helpful solution where you're not having to buy a whole new device just because you mouth breathe. Another alternative to Tempdrop would be vaginal temping instead of oral temping, and that works excellently for people. But obviously, it just depends, if you want to explore that. Some people don't like that. I recommend it because again, you're not having to buy a whole new device, but it's up to you. It also is great for people who do shift work. So people like working overnight, flight attendants, nurses, that type of thing. It is excellent at just working with your body and again, helping to kind of filter out those disturbances that you may experience due to sleeping at different times that you might see with oral temping. Also works well just for irregular sleep patterns in general. Specifically, when I say irregular sleep patterns, I'm talking about something like insomnia. I don't mean irregular like, oh, sometimes I go to sleep at 10 and sometimes I go to sleep at 2. We're not talking about that, where it's like sometimes you might just, shift whether it's on the weekend versus the weekday. That's totally normal. What I'm talking about is more solid, like chronic sleep disturbances where you really have a consistently poor quality of sleep. There are other solutions besides needing a Tempdrop to just having, a different go to sleep, wake up schedule. That's something that can definitely be worked with. Just by choosing one time in the morning that you're consistently in bed, even if you are waking up earlier or later some days. But we can talk about that in another video. But this could be a solution for you. Other things that it works well with is sometimes thyroid conditions. I've definitely had a couple clients who really struggled to have readable charts with thyroid conditions when they were oral temping. When they switched to Tempdrop, their temperature patterns improved dramatically and drastically. Dramatically, yes. And it was just a total night and day shift. So for some people, it can work perfectly for thyroid. Also long cycles, with a caveat that you need to also be using cervical mucus charting in addition to temperature. Only using a Tempdrop with long cycles is not a good idea because probably you may experience at some times false temperature shifts, and you really need to be able to cross-check your potential shifts with cervical mucus observations to actually make sure that according to the rules of your established method that you're actually confirming ovulation, not just sometimes having more regular temperatures, okay? The other benefits of Tempdrop, and this one's obviously huge, is that you don't need to wake up and temp, obviously. If you're temping overnight, it's taking data throughout the whole night to give you one temperature in the morning, as opposed to having to wake up with like an alarm or at a certain time and take your temperature manually, orally, or vaginally. Personally, for some people that's a pro. Honestly, I tried Tempdrop in the past for 7 cycles, and I still found myself waking up anyway to temp. So like, I personally didn't experience that magical shift where it's like, oh, I can get all this great sleep. But that's just me personally. It might be different for you, where it's like a total, improvement for you. So another benefit is that you can temp alongside Tempdrop. So I've seen lots of people, and I did this myself, who still use Tempdrop and they also temp orally or vaginally, and they love to be a fam nerd and compare their different types of temping data on their chart. And what's cool is you can really see how your temperatures align. They're not going to be exactly the same, I can tell you that right now, day to day between Tempdrop and another basal thermometer, but overall the patterns will align, and in my opinion, the more data the better. Why not, if you like to do that? Obviously it is a wearable, and another benefit of it is that you can sort of set it and forget it, so to speak, where you put it on at night when you go to sleep, you keep it on overnight, and you wake up with a valid temperature the next day. Here are some potential cons though. I want to really talk about those. One that I have a big problem with personally is the premium app feature that talks about like predicting the fertile window, predicting ovulation. This type of language with fertility awareness related devices, in my opinion, can be really misleading. And I want to just remind you that you don't need any device to predict anything for you. You yourself can do that based on the rules of an established fertility awareness based method. And when I say you can predict things, what I mean is you can predict menstruation based on when you've confirmed ovulation, but you don't need any device. You can name any device that claims to predict it, and I can tell you, you don't need it. You don't need any device that claims to predict ovulation or the fertile window for you. What you need is you need to be able to do that for yourself so that you are empowered and you're not relying on any device. Because oftentimes, even though these devices and apps have the best intentions, they're just not accurate enough for if you're trying to avoid pregnancy. So I just really would not recommend following those types of prompts in any app. It can be the most expensive app in the world, and I can just tell you, you don't want to rely on that, okay? Especially if you're trying to avoid pregnancy. And the other potential con for people is the upfront cost of a Tempdrop. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It can be expensive for some people. This totally depends on what your particular financial situation is. For some people, it's like totally fine, they can just buy it. For other people, you need to really save up for a while. I won't really include the price right now because it may shift in the future, but currently the Tempdrop 2.0 version does retail online for over $200, I believe. And so that's something that you can obviously go double check anytime you see this video and just see what it is. Just see if it fits in your budget. If it doesn't, there are alternatives that you can explore. If it does, great. And if you really want it, then you can save up for it and utilize it later. Another potential con is potential skin irritation at the site of the sensor on the armband. This did happen to me, but that was with the old Tempdrop model, so the new one with the new armband might be different. This is something that you might just find out for yourself and probably is based on your particular skin sensitivity. But since it did happen to me, and since I did experience it as a con when I used it in the past, I did want to mention it. Another one is potential sensory discomfort of the armband. Again, I am just I'm a person who's very sensitive to certain types of touch. So if you have any kind of like sensory processing issues, this could be something to try and see if you like it. Some people love that sense of like constriction and snugness. I personally don't. I found it to be very distracting when I was trying to sleep, and it would kind of like mess me up in terms of my sleep. And just irritate me a little bit and be uncomfortable. So didn't love that, but again, that's just me. Tons of people don't even register that as an issue at all. So like, up to you. Another thing is some people report like a slightly delayed temperature shift with their Tempdrop readings. In my opinion, this really depends on the person, depends on the cycle. In my opinion, that is like subject to change, basically. All of my clients who I've recommended Tempdrop to and who have actually used it, the charts that I've seen have looked beautiful, and it's like night and day again, because a lot of times these people really needed the Tempdrop and it does really help them. Some considerations are, again, do you actually need a temp drop? It's expensive. It's a lot to consider, so please consider it. You do not need to just jump into getting a temp drop immediately if you're exploring fertility awareness. Please consider it first, especially because it is expensive, and you want to make sure that it's a good match for you. Again, alternatives are just oral and vaginal basal temperature taking in the morning with a temperature or with a thermometer like the thermometer Vinca 2. I have another video reviewing that device. It's excellent, love it. Or you can get something as simple as like an $8 to $10 BBT thermometer at like Target. Those work fine too. They're just not going to have as many features to make temping super easy like the thermometer Vinca 2 does. If after this whole video you decide that yes, the temp drop is for me, that's great. And if you want to check out the discount code below, go for it. If not, also fine. There's no extra cost to you. Obviously, it's an affiliate link for myself, so it would help support me and my channel, but obviously, up to you. So that pretty much sums it up. I hope this is helpful, guys. Please, if you have any personal experience with temp drop yourself, and if you've experienced other pros and cons, please leave them in the comments below, because these types of things, again, are very experiential to each person. This is based on my thoughts and experience, based on me using temp drop myself in the past for over seven cycles, and based on my work with clients who have had really positive experiences with temp drop. So I've seen a range. I hope you find what is the best match for you, and please share your experiences below and your questions below. If you're seeking additional guidance with learning fertility awareness, I am a certified fertility awareness instructor. This is absolutely my passion, and I love working with people to teach them this method for natural birth control. It's highly effective, up to 99.6% effective when learned with a certified educator like myself. So if that's something that you need help with, support with, and you want to explore, please check out the link below in my description box. You can go ahead and schedule a free call with me just to talk about your needs and goals with learning this method, and we can get started to get you supported in that. All right, guys, hope you have a good weekend, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.